And now it's the Deborah Cobelt Live and the Little Italy podcast.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our podcast. We are so thrilled to welcome Michelle Danner. Michelle is, hardly even needs an introduction. Michelle is a film and stage director, author, world-renowned acting coach. She's got her Michelle Danner Acting School. Michelle has worked with some incredible A-listers that you'd know about: Andy Garcia, Penelope Cruz, Selma Hayek, Gerard Butler. You've also co-directed a play with Anne Archer. Some of the films that you've been involved with: Bad Impulse, The Runner with Cameron Douglas. Last year, the film Miranda's Victim. I really want to talk about that one. That was the last film that Donald Sutherland did, which is really incredible. And also a film close to my heart, The Italians, because, we're also simulcasting this on our Little Italy podcast. Excited to talk about The Italians. And I believe you're also of Italian descent, right?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My mother was born in Milano, Italy. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, in Europe. I grew up in France. I traveled to Italy many, many times and other parts of Europe. And Italy is one of my very favorite countries in the world.
Oh, absolutely. I go there as often as I can. Honestly, I have family there. We're more from southern Italy. And the more I go, the more I really understand how special it is, and other parts of Europe as well. But Italy will always have my heart. So, in fact, let's talk a little bit about you growing up, because you did grow up in Paris. Mom is from Italy, as you said. And your dad was in the business. Can we talk about that?
Yes, my father was asked by the William Morris Agency to open the very first offices off the Champs-Élysées in Paris, France. So when I was 2 years old, we moved, I was born in New York City, but we moved to Paris. And my dad, I had a wonderful father, and I would go and he would take me to work and I'd play under his desk. And I was privy to all these big stars that would come in because he was
Oh,
the
wow.
president, he became the president. And they came and talked to him about their dreams. And I remember, just absorbing that, taking it all in.
Oh, absolutely. Was it at that moment that you thought, I've got to be in this business? I mean, not quite like that, right? As a little kid, but
I
you absorbed so much, right?
I think that going to school and just, you know, having access to all this French literature. I remember also every Sunday bringing guests to Versailles, to museums. I think I grew up in a very intellectual, artistic, milieu, as they say in France. And so I was always very attracted to the arts, to any form and every form of art.
Yeah. So then how did you end up, professionally in the business? What was your first foray into the business? Was it acting? Was it teaching? Talk to us about that, because the business, if you will, is changing around us. And I want to get into that in a little bit as well.
Well, I mean, my first foray, when you said that, the first image that came up is that I raised some money and I went to the municipality, the theater, and asked them to give us the theater so we could perform a play, Antigone by Jean Anouilh. I got a group of
Oh,
actors together and we were sold out. And we basically took a hat and what's it called when you go around the audience and everybody like puts money in, and then we divided amongst the cast, and it was an extraordinary evening.
oh,
Um,
neat.
I don't know if that was the thing that got me into show business, or the fact that I adapted The Queen's Necklace by Alexandre Dumas and cast 40 kids in my school. The teachers loved me,
Wow.
hated me at the same time because I brought all that excitement and also all that turmoil. But I studied a lot in France. I went to a lot of theater and a lot of movies. But when I moved to the United States when I was a teenager, I studied with Stella Adler. I studied with Uta Hagen, and I think they opened up doors for me. I also did theater in New York City, and those were some wonderful years. There were the years of Studio 54 and Club A, and so I would go do scenes for, Stella and Uta Hagen, and then at night go dancing until, 5 o'clock in the morning at Studio 54. It was certainly a crazy time in my life before I became domesticated and started to have children.
Yeah, I will tell you, one of the most spectacular times in New York, right? Those times, go to the area or the Limelight or 54, like you said,
I
and just be
remember
out,
them, yeah.
right? And you're just out until all hours of the night, dancing with whomever is next to you. And it was really actually a very innocent time too, right? You can go there by yourself and just find anybody to dance with and have the best time. I'm not a big, I don't drink at all. And I don't do any drugs, but I remember going out dancing and having the time of my life with people I've never met and would never see again. And it was just great fun, right? And it really was such an artistic expression,
I
right? To
think
sort
so.
of add to what you were doing. Go ahead.
Lose yourself in a club and just dance the night away. It
Yeah.
gets you out of your head. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about those influences. You talk about, let's talk about some of the approaches, the techniques that you teach based on so much of those influences. You teach the Meisner, Strasberg, Adler, Uta Hagen, and others, right? I mean, a lot of times an acting school doesn't necessarily teach all of those. They might teach one or the other, but you really branch out, don't you?
Well, unless your philosophy encompasses that every technique is valuable and needs to be
Mm,
studied, because then what I say is actors find the tools that specifically work for them and they create a toolbox, the actor's toolbox, which I call the golden box, where you put in those very specific tools that work for you.
mm.
And then to that, every time you get a job, you learn something. There's always lessons to be learned. So you join those to the toolbox. And then life, of course, will teach you all kinds of lessons that also go on that toolbox, the golden box.
Do you think more actors start in theater and end up go in today's world going to TV and film, or it's just now everybody just wherever you start, wherever you get your opportunity is where you go? Tell me about that because I can imagine if you're training, you might pick one or the other. I don't know. I'm
Well,
curious about that.
I think that, I mean, it depends if you're in LA. In LA, it's obviously much easier to book a TV show or to book, a movie, an independent movie. Because this is what happens here in Hollywood. If you're in New York, then you're going to audition for theater more, and you may find yourself, on stage before you find yourself in front of the camera. But
Right.
actors long to, you know, raise the bar. And
Yeah.
for instance, so many actors are in New York right now on stage
Yeah.
working, or in London, or anywhere in the world.
Mm.
Theater, will, you got to have chops for the theater. And Robert Downey Jr. is doing a play right now that I'm looking forward to going to see at Lincoln Center.
Oh,
Denzel Washington. I mean, there's so many actors that know that to be better, you have to work on great literature. You have to work
mm.
on great writing because that's what's going to elevate you.
Right. Right, absolutely. But how is the business changing, particular in TV and film, and also changing out here in LA? Because I have friends who are actors, also people who work behind the scenes, and they're like, it's dry. There's nothing out here. I don't know because that's not what I do, but I would think with streaming, there would almost be more work, no? And also auditioning. Do you go and stand in line with your script in your hand, waiting to audition, or is it more something like this? Tell me how it's changed for people.
Well, I think COVID has changed everything and has opened up a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of podcasts on Zoom, whereas maybe before COVID we would have done it in person.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in terms of casting. I mean, people are turning in self-tapes and then they're following up by doing auditions on Zoom. It's a little dangerous sometimes to just audition on Zoom because, there's nothing like seeing someone in person. But the reality of it, I was shooting a movie last April in Italy with wonderful Toni Collette and Andy Garcia and Alex Pettifer and Eva Di Domenici. There were a lot of roles to cast, but I was in Puglia, Italy. So you can't have people come and meet with you in person. So you have to do it on Zoom.
Right.
And
Oh,
so, you're forced to do it on Zoom. But, I found some great actors. I mean, I like better doing it in person. So, but yes, COVID and the fact that we discovered, how to audition, online has changed everything. And Unfortunately, particularly in Hollywood, there's been a lot of articles lately. It's being talked a lot about it, that people are not shooting as much. Partly is because, the tax incentives are problematic. They only give them to big budgets. So independent movies don't get the tax incentive to shoot in LA. So you have to go other places. And and then people really are looking to not deal with certain things they have to deal with in the US. And so they are looking to shoot in other parts of the world where it's easier to shoot. So that's how that business has changed. But it's always a cycle. And I always say whatever goes up goes down and vice versa. So
So does that matter in terms of where an actor is located? Should they still be in LA, or does it just not matter anymore since so many are even auditioning on Zoom? What do you think?
well, I mean, I think people still should be in LA because wherever you go, there are people that are talking about being creative together, whether you go
Yeah.
to the gym or whether you're at a coffee shop or whether, you come out of a theater, a movie theater. There's a certain energy in Los Angeles. I always ask people, I say, what is it about LA? It's the weather. Some of it is the weather. Some of it is, but there's an energy that you feel you can accomplish anything. If anything, you put a group of people together, you work on it in LA, and then you go shoot it somewhere else in the world.
Hmm. What are some of the biggest challenges facing actors today, would you say? And what's the best thing an actor can do to prepare?
There's a lot of competition. I
Hmm.
think you're competing, and then and it's not even that you're competing for excellence. You're just, every project has its own politics. Everybody has the list of people that they want to cast. It's very possible that you have given a great audition and you put your heart and soul in it, but they need to cast somebody else that knows somebody else who will bring something else to the table. So, politics are a part of it. But the biggest advice that I would give is be proactive. Maybe you're not the kind of person that's going to, wear many hats. Some people don't like to wear many hats, and everybody needs to know who they are and what they can do. But sometimes when you'll connect people together and you create a community, then you can achieve things together. So
Hmm.
my always my advice is be proactive.
And very often you could do that at an acting school like yours, right? I mean, you're around a community of people who are looking to get better, who are looking to learn, who have ideas to share. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah.
That's where you find community. I
Yeah.
am creative with friends of mine that I have met in acting class 25 years ago.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but what about the days? I remember when I was looking for broadcasting jobs, I remember standing outside of a building, ABC on Columbus Avenue in New York City. And I remember I just wanted something. And it was also before 9/11 when you could just walk into the NBC building, which I did. And I sat there at the Saturday Night Live offices, which I did. And somebody said to me, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, I mean, I hate to say this, but that's what I said, I'm an intern." They said, "Well, where's your badge?" I said, "I don't have one." They said, "Well, go get one in whatever services, human resources." So I went down. They're like, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, Tommy just whatever his name was sent me down to get a badge for Sat," and I ended up an intern for Saturday Night Live. Okay, so like I didn't know anybody in the business. I didn't know what I was doing. I was also answering phones at Good Morning America. I had no idea how to get into do anything. I did study journalism, but I mean, I had a lot of guts, right? That's hard to do now, though. You can't walk into the NBC building. You can't just stand there outside of the ABC building and hope somebody, and hand out a resume. I actually did these things. So, what do people, right? So, what do people do now when they can't do that?
Well, you find out how you can email your resume and follow it up with phone calls. And, it's always better, I think, when you get in through an introduction.
Yeah,
And so, be as social and personable as you can and strike conversations with people and find out, how you can befriend people, not because you're into networking, but because you genuinely like the person and you
yeah.
want to be their friend and, create a community. And I always, people introduce you to people. I have a lot of people that introduce me to so many people. And
Yeah.
I found myself on a yacht this summer in
Oh,
Sardinia because I have some wonderful friends that introduce me to people. Um, so I think it's called pay it forward. You introduce, they introduce you, you
true.
create a community around you.
Yeah, it's true. And you may not be able to bust into buildings anymore the way I did, but there are ways, right? You can maybe be an usher at a theater. Because there's a lot of great theater here. And I'm not talking movie theaters, I'm talking theater here in LA. A lot of people don't realize this, but there's a lot of great small community theater. And there's ways to just be in the community, right? Still.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also go be part, volunteer, on a movie set.
Yeah.
Ask what you can contribute.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
mean, it's
major part.
better to be around your people than not, right? And there are still ways. Talk to me about the Italians a little bit. I just love the idea of the Italians. Talk to us about what is it about? What inspired you to do it, please?
Well, years ago, probably over 5 years ago, a wonderful writer, Lisa Visca Phillips, approached me with a play called The Italians, and we did a reading of it at the theater, and loved it. And it never we never did it on stage other than the reading, but I thought this would be a great movie. And there's
Mm,
at the end of it, uh, I'll just say what it is. Spoiler, I'm a spoiler.
that's okay.
For my mother, Loredana. And that's why I was very
Oh,
attracted to this story, is because I'm of Italian descent. My blood memory is Italian. Like I used to joke, when we would sit down to dinner, sometimes we knew the spaghetti was going to fly. We just didn't know exactly when, but it was bound to happen because,
wow. You too?
Italian,
Okay, I love it. I'm not the
Italian
only one.
temper. Yeah, exactly. Italian tempers and but ultimately there was a lot of love in our family, even though it was very volcanic and and filled with fireworks. But I just was attracted to the material. I was attracted to telling a story about how family is dysfunctional and yet loves each other deeply.
Mm,
So I was moved by it, and I reached out to friends of mine that I've known for a very long time to work on it with me. Brian Drillinger, who I met in acting class a zillion years ago, and Rob Estes, who him and I did The Rose Tattoo by Tennessee Williams. It was the first
wow.
production, I believe it was 1996, maybe, that we did it, and it hadn't been done in like 18 years in LA. And we did it. We ran for almost a year. We had 21 people in a goat. It was at a theater in Hollywood, and we had a great experience. And since then, we've kept in touch and have worked on other plays and movies and musicals together. And we were actually just in Italy shooting, and he plays my husband in The Italians. Also, Abigail Breslin, who was the lead in
Mm,
Miranda's Victim. She also plays the girlfriend of my son, played by Matthew Daddario. Lainey Kazan plays my mother. Uh,
wow.
David DeLuise plays my brother. Olivia Lucardi plays the ex-girlfriend. Perry Reeves plays my best friend. So I was so lucky. I mean, I had this amazing cast of actors that came to do this. It's a comedy. It's really funny. We're doing the festival circuit. As a matter of fact, we'll be at the Ojai Film Festival on November 2nd. Then we'll be at the Los Angeles International Film Festival, at the Big Apple Film Festival. This summer, we were in two big Italian film festivals, and people are really responding to it. They're laughing a lot. They're moved at the end. And I can't wait for it to come out. It'll probably happen Easter of next year.
Oh, magnificent. And those of us who are Italian, I'm sure we will see ourselves or family members and friends in this film. Am I correct?
Yes, I think so. It's very universal. It's about this
Yeah.
particular family, the Vitale family, which means vita, life, bigger than life. But I think that a lot of families are going to see each other in this.
Yeah. Tell me about having an Italian mom and what it was like growing up. I mean, you grew up primarily in France, but you did have an Italian mom. What were the Italian influences early in your life?
Well, her background, she was a dancer and she was a singer. She had a beautiful voice. and she was quite beautiful, uh, like Sophia Loren. She was,
Wow.
Sophia Loren. So she always had a lot of men. And remember, I grew up in the 70s, and a lot of men were after her all the time. Um, she had four kids, four daughters, were four girls. She was very spontaneous, and she was mercurial. She was a Gemini astrologically, and so she was. But she loved us so much. She had such deep love for us. She was loyal, and we were the most important thing in her life.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it was. I think she lived. She died a few years ago. She lived to see a rough cut, a first cut of Miranda's Victim with Donald
Mm.
Sutherland. And Donald was her favorite actor of all time. So when she found out that he had said yes and that I was able to work with him, she was just thrilled. And I told that to Donald on set, you're on my mother's favorite actor. Um, but my mother was also a poet. She was published. She was also a painter. So she was very artistic. She painted beautifully. She wrote beautiful poetry. She sang, she danced. But she, her career came after us. We always came first. We
Yeah.
were her most important thing that was her concern. And so, yeah, it was great to have her as my mother.
Yeah.
But
Wonderful. Of course.
I wish she had seen the Italians. She did not see it because I did it after she passed away. But I'm sure wherever she is, she's seeing it.
Yeah. I love that you were inspired to do the Italian. So clearly, your life inspired you to do the Italians. Yes.
Yes, yes, very much so. It's not autobiographical, but it is autobiographical.
Yeah. No, I love that. Talk to me a little bit about Miranda's. Hold on, hang on a minute. What's her name? Miranda's. I'm
Victim.
suddenly.
Miranda's
Yes.
Victim. Yeah, it's about the Miranda rights. When
Miranda's Victim. Yes. How
the
could I forget
movie
that?
was
Okay.
offered, yeah, when the movie was offered to me, I didn't realize that nobody had done a story about how the Miranda rights came about. And a movie that I had directed called The Runner, which you mentioned, with Edouard Philippon and Cameron Douglas, the first scene in the movie, the kid gets arrested and they read him his Miranda rights. And I never questioned, where did that come from? It was a gap in our history. So when they asked me to direct this, I immediately said yes, because also I'm the queen of watching the Datelines and the 48 Hours and every show you can imagine and the unsolved mysteries. So I thought, oh wow, this is great. And we did it a couple of years ago. We shot it on film. And not only did Donald Sutherland was the first one to say yes. So that's when I knew that there was like an angel overseeing this, because my dad always reminded me of Donald. Then
That's neat.
Andy Garcia came to do it, and Ryan Philippe and Luke Wilson and Kyle MacLachlan and Josh Bowman and Dan Lauria, and for the women, Abigail Breslin and Mireille Enos and
Wow.
Emily Van Cam. I mean, I had this cast. I mean, and here we are in New Jersey, and everybody. It was during COVID still, I had to wear the mask, but I wore the clear mask so people could see my face and my lips moving. Um, it was from beginning to end one of the most incredible experiences that I had shooting this movie with all these incredible actors about a really important subject matter.
Yeah. How can people see that?
People see it's on Hulu now, but people can see it on Apple and every, platform.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's good, very well reviewed. One of the things that meant a lot to me is that Leonard Maltin reviewed it really well. I remember buying all the books of Leonard Maltin when I was a teenager and reading all his reviews, and the fact that he really liked it meant something to me. Yes.
He was very fair, wasn't he? And
I
Leonard is really fair.
Very classy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, your latest project, a sci-fi thriller, is that something new for you to be doing, a sci-fi thriller? Because look at all the different genres that you're involved with, right? You've got the Italians. You've got Miranda's Victim. You worked on, we mentioned Bad Impulse. You've done so much. not just acting, but in directing. And now you've got a sci-fi thriller. Why did you decide to do that, a sci-fi thriller? And how do you pick all your material?
I'm very eclectic with my choices. I always have been. As a matter of fact, one of my inspirations as a filmmaker is Ang Lee, because he also is attracted to different genres. And
Yeah,
we met him once. We were in Cannes. I was the year that The Life of Pi came out, and he's at the breakfast room, the same hotel we were staying at. And my son at the time, uh, who was 10 years old, I said, "Look, this is Ang Lee. We just saw his movie, The Life of Pi." So he went up to him, and my son started a 45-minute conversation with him.
wow.
Yes, about specifically telling him why he loved The Life of Pi. And at the end of it, Langley looked at me and he said, "Your son's going to write and direct." And he was right. My son just graduated from USC. He studied theater and film, and he's writing his first screenplay. He's directed shorts that have gone on the festival circuit and won awards. And he's working with me. So he is, one of the reasons why I think, all this work is happening because he's writing with me and he's helping me. But anyway, where did I go? What was the question you asked me?
No,
About
just
the
you have such
genres.
eclectic taste.
I'm
How do
interested in
you?
different things. And so now the reason why they asked me to direct Helios is because it is a sci-fi thriller about, space and what happens when sun flares hit the earth, which is really timely right now,
Oh yeah.
scarily enough. But it's a human story, and they felt that I was the right director to tackle that. Women do not get asked to direct these movies. The last big budget movie was Mimi Leader, Deep Impact. Women don't get a chance to do this, so that's also part of it. The challenge of doing it is what's attracting me to it, but the story, really.
Honestly, that was my next question. Women in film. I'm not talking actors. I'm talking women directors raising money for films. Is it still tough, or is it really cracking open? Would you say?
I think more and more opportunities are opening up. I mean, we just had a meeting with a big studio about Helios, and I was expecting them to say to me, step aside, let's get another director, let's get a guy to do this.
Mm,
But they didn't say that. They said they was thrilled that I was doing it. So, you
wow.
know, I was
How,
thrilled to hear that.
how about women of a certain age, right? Women over 40. Let's just leave it there. What
Well,
about
I'm a
that? Because
woman over 40, obviously. But I just think it's true that you have to you can shave off today 10, 15 years of your life and look at people that are functioning in their 80s, and I think that people are going to extend their lives by just taking care of themselves.
taking care of themselves, particularly mentally, right? Being involved with interesting material, whatever it is that you do. If you're in the acting and the arts, or if you're in science or math, but just stay involved. I think you're absolutely right. I do not let my age, for example, get in the way of anything I do. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, okay, I just won't be working with you. Because I feel like there's so much great potential, great stories that come out of people who are of a certain age. And also in terms of working, there's so much experience. I'm glad that we live in this time where if there's a barrier, we'll just break it down, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think that they're extending the age where you can't anymore. I think
Yeah.
you can until you can't, but you can.
How about raising money? A friend of mine did a film. It's called "Show Her the Money." It's a documentary, and about women filmmakers and entrepreneurs who are raising money for various businesses. And apparently, I mean, it's such a low percentage of women who still get the money to do various projects. Do you find that when you go to direct a film, or you don't?
No, I mean, I've been lucky, but I know that it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I remember watching an interview that Robert Redford was talking about um, raising money for what was the movie with Donald Sutherland and Mary Tyler Moore? His
Oh,
uh,
ordinary people.
Ordinary People, which they won an Oscar for. And he was having a hard time raising money. And I thought to myself, if
Oh,
Robert Redford is having a hard time, my God. Uh, but in
right.
Scorsese talks about how hard it is to raise money, but if specifically women. So if you can imagine, so it's hard for these men to raise it. Imagine how hard it is for women to raise it. Um, yeah, I work with my sisters. I have wonderful, wonderful sisters, and we've been lucky. They're my partners. We produce together. Uh,
Mm.
it also helps, of course, that we've done, movies. So, and we are making movies actively. But it's not easy. You just, I think, have to keep being inventive and resourceful and have conversations and share your passion.
Streaming, and the various streaming services, has it made it easier to get a project done?
I mean, yes and no. I still, I'm in the world of wanting every filmmaker wants to show their films in theaters.
Right.
So I am still of the mind that I go to the theater to watch movies all the time.
Hmm.
I love that experience, that communal experience of being with other people in the room, either watching something that's scary or watching a comedy or
Right.
something that, that thrills you. I, So, I think that there's a lot too many streaming services. I think it's too much. Um, but, I think things will change. Everything changes. But I don't think we'll ever lose the experience of going to a movie theater and watching, a movie that way, the way it's supposed to be watched.
Right. Right. I agree with that. So, advice for people out there who want to direct, advice for people who are maybe not, they're down on their luck a little bit about they feel like they've done the great audition, it's not happening. Anything you'd like to say to them, and anything else you'd like to say to our audience that I didn't even think to ask you, because you're more the expert than I certainly am.
Well, I mean, I think that you can't lose faith. You have to
Yeah.
stay hopeful and put one foot in front of the other and have patience. But if you do something every single day towards this image that you have of what you're walking towards, if you every single day do one little step, it will happen. I am a
Mm.
great believer, in studying, no surprise there. I am a great believer in training. I'm a great believer in going to watch things, read a lot, um, take notes, remember things, let your imagination get off your phone a little bit, get off, technology a little bit, take a break from
Absolutely.
take a break that hurts artists to
Yeah.
always be on the computer and always, um, so I think that keep to travel a lot. That is one of my greatest advices. I just believe in traveling and seeing the world and going to places in the world that you've never been to. It expands you, it opens you in ways that nothing else, does. Um, so those are the things that I believe in.
Mm. I also say to people, go to the theater. And by theater, I mean see a live performance, even if it's a high school performance. Just get to the theater and be around that, that energy. Don't you think? I
No
just think
question
it,
about it.
and read the classics. I mean, they're never ever out of style, right? Watch some past performances. I just think a story is a story. Past performances are so wonderful, right, to learn from. Really, really is.
Absolutely. Go back to the classics. Go back. I'm watching right now a great biography on Elizabeth Taylor, the Lost Tapes or something with the tapes in it. It's on Amazon.
Oh,
And, it just brings you back to a part of history. She had such a great life. And in it, there's stories about James Dean and Rock Hudson. And, it transports you somewhere. Anything that you can do in your journey to be transported somewhere, I think is so valuable for your growth.
absolutely. Now, can you give a shout out to your acting school or schools, and the different types of classes that you offer? Are they Zoom? Are they in person? Is it all of the above?
Yes, so we have two schools, the Los Angeles Acting Conservatory, where we have programs, and Michelle Danner Acting Studio. And I was actually teaching there this weekend. There were two groups. One group were teenagers that are graduating that came from London, from England. I was talking to them and I saw the light in everybody's eyes. And
Mm.
then I taught a class, for 9 to 11-year-olds. And I was working with them on improvisations and telling stories and acting. So we have classes of, all different ages. We also have classes on Zoom. Yesterday I was teaching on Zoom. I also have a great faculty of teachers. So I love teaching. Somebody said to me on a Zoom yesterday, well, you're making so many movies, you don't need to teach. I say, oh, no, no, I will continue to teach whenever I have breaks. I love to, it's about passing it down. I mean, Stella Adler used to say that it's your duty to pass it down, and that's what I'm doing.
What about people of a certain age who want to get into acting?
I don't think there's any age that is a no-no. Every age works. I mean, you're casting, you make stories about life. I
Yeah.
love particularly this movie called Thelma with,
Hmm.
did you see it? Oh my God, I have to see,
Who's in it?
blanking. This wonderful actress, she's like 92 years old, and she did her own stunts, and she was,
Wow.
nominated for an Oscar, not for this, but for another movie. Um, I'm so bad with names. This is when your age starts to show.
No,
It's
you just have so many projects and things going on. That's all. But sometimes, names just sort of get
yes, yeah. I didn't want
they.
to mispronounce it. That's what it was. I knew it was June. June Squibb.
Oh, yes.
Incredible.
Okay.
June
Oh,
Squibb, Thelma. I love that. She's 92 doing her own stunts. My God. I mean, of course, she's been acting for, a long time. But I think if you're 80 and you go, hey, I want to give this a try, go for it.
why
Just
not?
go for it. Yeah.
Hmm. You're so inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed my conversation with you, and very, very much. And if people want to get in touch with you or the school, how should they reach out?
They can just go to the website and call. We do it the old-fashioned way. You can call or you can go online. But it's the Michelle Danner Acting Studio, the Los Angeles Acting Conservatory. I'm on social media, the Michelle Danner LA, Actors International, and that's how you can find out, the new workshops, the new classes, the programs, all of that.
Exciting. It's also an exciting time being out of COVID to get and start
Oh,
interacting with people again. I know
oh,
myself, I do a little too much Zooming and I'm like, no, I got to get out there and just see what's going on and
yeah.
connecting with people. And if it's Zoom that you do, that's okay too, because you're still connecting, right? But it's a great time to get out
Yeah,
and explore.
actually, I love Zoom, but there's nothing like the in person. And I can't, this summer I was uh, in several theaters, and I thought to myself, we never thought that that moment was going to come, that we could all sit together, like a lot of people without masks, close to each other. But that moment, happened. Thank God.
It's here. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Michelle, for taking the time and talking to us. You're such a beautiful career and life that you've led, eclectic and interesting, and a story will always be a story, right? And people, if you're interested, you want to get involved, look up Michelle Danner, her acting school, some of her films as well. The Italians will be out next year. I'm excited for that one,
Yeah.
and others. So and the Miranda's Victim. For some reason, I want to keep saying Miranda's Law. It's Miranda's Victim.
Yeah, but it
Look
is
that up as well.
Miranda. Yeah, find out about the story. It's an incredible story. Yeah.
I know that's incredible. I'm going to go and look that up. Maybe this week I'll take a look and I'll text you. I'll let you know that I
Yeah.
saw it.
Let me
Anyway,
know.
everybody, yeah. Um, Grateful that you were here, and everybody, to find our interview with Michelle Danner, please look up Deborah Cobelt Live and our Little Italy podcast as well. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook, and all audio platforms as a podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, just about anywhere where you get your podcast. Just look us up and you'll find our interview. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you so much for having me.